Hello, Marcus Lim here with Superman Space Age, the hardcover collection, collecting the 3-issue series. So here's issue number 1, issue number 2, and issue number 3. It's a little bit hard to describe this series. I mean, it's a bit interesting, is what I can put it. It's like, Superman decade spanning 2 decades of Superman from the 60s to the 80s, or 60s, 70s, 80s, okay, about 20 years. So you could think of it as Elseworlds meets a history lesson in a sense. The 60s is like, there's like the death of the President Kennedy, and then you've got 70s, the Watergate incident, and then, so, there's real world events tying in as well. But it's about a Superman from an alternate universe, right, that lived from the 60s to the 80s. So it's kind of interesting. And this is, as I said before, it collects Superman Space Age number 1 to number 3. Okay? And interestingly, issue number 2 and 3, they came out like more than 5 months apart, right? So this series had a pretty erratic sort of publishing schedule. But in any case, it's good to have this out in hardcover. And the cover, as you can see, of this hardcover is also the cover to issue number 1. Issue number 1 is about the 60s, okay? So loosely, issue 1 is 60s, issue 2 70s, issue 3 80s, where the world ends because of the crisis, which in the real world, in our world, as we know, Crisis on Infinite Earths was also published in the mid 80s, right? So that's when the universe ends. So there's a feel of inevitability to the whole story, because there is an endpoint. Okay, so that's the jacket, and here's what it looks like. Superman Space Age. That's the I think the back cover is actually the cover to issue number 3, right? Okay, so let's take a look inside. So Superman Space Age. Alright, in Space Age, you can tell it's got a very 70s Silver Age feel, and that's because, it is Silver Age. So from the perspective of 1985, right, he then looks back. So you get this narrative running throughout, and at the very end of the series, there's a very nice twist where it's revealed who's actually reading this narrative. So we start off with from the 60s, right? Clark Kent. There's also characters like Lex as well. So even though Lex and Bruce Wayne, Batman, so even though this is a Superman story, right, we do have like all these other characters pop up as well. There's, interestingly, Pariah. If you know your DC Comics, right? Pariah, he's one of the, I guess, key characters in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So he kind of pops up every now and then throughout the, over the course of the 20 years. He's like a harbinger of, what's gonna happen in the 80s when the crisis hits, and, Anti-Monitor comes and pretty much destroys everything. So he's like a warning about what's gonna happen in the 80s. The Justice League also appears as well, and when we get to issue 2, that's when in the 70s. Alright, that's when the Watergate incident, with the parallel to the real world. There's Lois Lane. We get Brainiac as well. And the series Mark Russell, right, he does use the series to examine different philosophical point of view. Like for instance, the trolley problem. How would Superman and Batman differ in the way that they view the trolley problem? So some philosophical discussions along the way. Yeah, so the series, it's like it is a Superman story. It also is about what Superman represents. It's an exploration of, I guess, themes like hope and love and heroism, and because there is an inevitability. Okay, this is interesting. This is yet another Superman from yet another universe. At the very end, the both of the universe Superman, they come together in a very nice twist. There's Pariah again. You can see, right, the infinite Earths happening. One thing that I think is a bit of a, I guess, I wouldn't say it's a letdown. It's just that I think there's so much in the series that they could have spent more issues to flesh it out. Like the Batman story in itself is interesting enough and has enough material to warrant its own, perhaps its own series. So a bit shortchanged in that area. But in any case, by the way, that's the Joker as well. And yeah, the way that Batman's story ends is somewhat surprising. That's all I can say. But in any case, we get to the end, and a very, very nice twist. So here, spoiler alert. Crisis hits, Anti-Monitor arrives, but Superman has a plan, right? Like, he sort of captures the essence of everybody, or something like that, into this crystal and sends it off to the Superman from that other universe. Okay, so in a way, we have the end of one universe and the beginning of another, because he recreates everything all over. So very nice twist, I think. Very moving ending. Yeah, it just wrestle with issues of mortality and loss and renewal and hope and love, as I mentioned. So what's this one? This is variant cover by Mike Allred, issue number 1, and that's another variant by Nick Darrington, issue number 1. Variant in issue number 1 by Steve Root, variant. Issue number 2, Nick Darrington variant. Issue number 2, Dave Johnson variant. Issue number 2, Nick Darrington. Oh, issue number 3, Nick Darrington variant. Issue number 3, Joe Quinones variant. And here's some logo designs by Mike Allred. Okay, cover pencils of the cover, issue number 1, cover pencils 2 and 3, and I think that's the Superman Study and Action Comics number 1050 variant cover. So it's not really related to Superman Space Age, but it is by the same Mike and Laura Allred artist team. Okay, so that's the book. And yeah, I would say this might have flown under the radar for most readers, but I think it is a very, very good Superman story. If you're looking for a great Superman story that goes to the heart of who he is, and as this reviewer says, it's Superman as he should be presented as a symbol of hope. As I mentioned, a lot of philosophical themes that's being tackled as well. Then I think this is really worth your while right now that it's collected in hardcover. So that's Superman Space Age hardcover collection, collecting issue number 1 to 3. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video.